who was Jesus? How do we really know that he made any of the statements that we find in the four Gospels? You said until recently, critical scholars argued that Jesus of Nazareth never claimed to be the Son of God or the Lord or any sort of divine figure. But today you say, no such skeptical consensus exists. Tell us why.
The reason, John, is that New Testament historians have come to appreciate the Gospels as generally reliable accounts of the life and teachings of the historical person, Jesus of Nazareth. Sometimes this is called the Jewish reclamation of Jesus. Scholars have come to understand that the proper background for understanding Jesus of Nazareth is not Greco-Roman mythology, but rather first century Palestinian Judaism. Jesus was a Jew, and all of the disciples were Jews. And it is against that background that Jesus of Nazareth is to be properly understood and interpreted. And when you do so, the Gospels begin to appear as accurate, generally reliable accounts for the life and teachings of this man. Jesus of Nazareth is referred to in a wide range of sources in the ancient world. Jewish sources, Christian sources, Roman sources. And the earliest of these sources were assembled into the New Testament. It's important that our viewers understand that originally there wasn't any such thing called the New Testament. There were just these separate documents in the Greek language handed down out of the first century, things like the Gospel of Luke, the Acts of the Apostles, the first letter of Paul to the church in Corinth, Greece. And it wasn't until hundreds of years later that the church assembled these documents under one cover and called it the New Testament. So by the very nature of the case, the earliest primary sources for the life of Jesus are those that were assembled and included in the New Testament. The church left out the later secondary derivative sources like the so-called apocryphal Gospels, which were forgeries that arose hundreds of years after Jesus and which everyone knew were forgeries. And this is important because the radical revisionary views of Jesus are all based upon these extra-biblical sources that are, as I say, derivative, secondary, and less reliable than the primary sources. So it's important to understand that when we look at these primary sources for Jesus, we're not reasoning in a circle. Scholars are not trying to prove the Bible by quoting the Bible. Rather, they are simply turning to these early documents that have been handed down out of the first century, telling this remarkable story of Jesus of Nazareth, and they're asking the question, how reliable are these documents?